Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. Today I'm joined by guest Will Bachman, who's the co-founder of Umbrex. Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jonathan. It is great to be here.
For folks who haven't come across you in the past, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a McKinsey alum. I left the firm in 2008 to start my own independent consulting practice. So I've been an independent consultant for 12 years. And I'm also the co-founder of Umbrex, which is a global community that connects top-tier independent management consultants with one another. We work to create opportunities for our members to build relationships with one another, share lessons learned, and find opportunities to collaborate.
Excellent. What was there a sort of a forcing factor that caused you to put that together?
Yes, there was. So when I left McKinsey after 5 years to start my own practice, I knew something about how to be a consultant, but I didn't really know the first thing about how to run a consulting practice. Mm-hmm. You know, how do you write a statement of work? How do you write a proposal? Where do I get health insurance? Right. How do I, get IT security? All these things, bookkeeping, accounting, taxes. As an independent professional, there's a lot to get up to speed on. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be valuable to connect with people that were more experienced than me. And so it was really to solve my own need of finding people to connect with to give me advice. And I was spurred on by a book that I read at the time by Seth Godin, one of my heroes, called Tribes, that talked about building and organizing your tribe. So that was also a big impetus behind the idea.
Excellent. And when was that again?
So I started connecting with other independent management consultants right when I got started in 2008. Mm-hmm. And for a number of years, I did that informally. I started organizing in-person events and professional development events for this loose community. And then a core group, evolved over time and kept growing. Finally, in 2015, together with Jing Lang and Margarita Soto, I founded Umbrex as an LLC, but it really grew out of that community building that started in 2008.
Great. That's so fabulous. Yeah, I'm also a big Seth Godin fan, so connect the others, right? Okay, and what have you found that has come out of that? Is it? I'm curious how much of it is a sort of professional support. Like you listed off the things like all the things that go into running your business that perhaps were not something that you had to do when you're inside of a bigger agency or bigger company. Now all of a sudden you're thrown out on your own and you're like, oh, wow, there is a whole bunch of stuff to do here that I need to do in addition to the thing that I'm actually good at. Here are this whole list of things that I have no experience with. Maybe I can figure out, but that doesn't sound like very much fun. So would you say it's primarily that kind of support, or does it get into actual project collaboration? Like do people connect with each other to say, hey, I've got this client, it's too much work for me to handle on my own, that sort of thing. Does it get to that level, or is it more the meta level of just how to run the business?
Well, it's really both, Jonathan. As Umbrex, we organize over 40 in-person events every year for members around the world. I go to a lot of those. We organize 3 major professional development events, 2-day events, typically West Coast of the U.S., East Coast, one in Europe. We have an online forum. And through those various mechanisms, I've heard dozens and dozens of stories of members who have connected at one of those events and then gone on to collaborate on a project together. And those are just the ones that I've heard about. Mm-hmm. We also, we don't charge members. Our business model that evolved over time to kind of support all this work we were doing is clients who are looking for an independent consultant. We help them avoid that search cost by finding the right member of our community. Since we've built relationships with the members and we know them, we can quickly find the right member of the community. And when we do that, we invoice the person through Umbrex and we add a modest margin, which helps cover our operating expenses. So I think what I'd say is for anyone listening of your show who is, working as whether they call them a soloist or a freelancer or an independent professional or independent consultant, if you're working as an independent, I think it's so important to join a tribe or help build one if you don't see one, and build community and look for other people to collaborate. I've seen so many success stories of people who found someone with related skills And it might be the case that you're serving a client and you're able to bring in that other expertise that your client needs, or the other person might bring you in. But there's so much opportunity to create value by looking for opportunities to collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that plenty of times in my own experience, even outside of what I would, management consulting, which seems like your focus. All sorts of areas where there's no watering hole, there's no place for people to get support. There, things like freelancers union and groups. I don't want to call them organizations. I guess it's an organization, but these sort of groups that kind of spin up to provide support for this sort of not quite gig economy, but these people who are now all work for themselves. It feels like there are more people than ever working for themselves, although I don't really know the statistics. It seems like a trend that will only increase, where people are, they don't have an employer, and they're like, geez, I don't really know what to do with any of the, with all of these things I need to do. And how do I just not socialize, but, how do where do I find my peer group? Where do I get that kind of support? So can you tell me a little bit more about, it sounds like you serve sort of a Umbrex marketing function for the consultants. How does that work? Do you actively sort of solicit clients, or do you have some sort of intake, or, are you kind of becoming I keep trying to not say umbrella, but are you becoming like an umbrella brand for these indies?
Well, part of the sort of the origin of Umbrex is the umbrella of excellence. So
right.
and that's our logo as well. So to be clear, we have over 800 members now who primarily alums of McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and Booz, and the vast majority at any one time are running their own projects through their own firm. So the majority of folks are doing their own projects. At any one time, some subset of folks may be working on a project that Umbrex sourced and generated. How projects come to us, we've taken a slightly different approach. There are some other intermediaries out there that are working to connect clients to consultants. And a lot of them have invested in large sales forces that are knocking on doors and cold calling clients. And look, I think that's fantastic. It's helped raise awareness that independent consultants are available. We've taken a different approach. We don't have a big sales force. We rely mainly on referrals from people that we know, referrals from members. Often when members of the community have a project opportunity that maybe not a right fit for them, they can share it with me. And then if we find the right person, then we'd share part of share part of our markup with that individual who brought it in. So it kind of keeps it in the family. That allows us to keep our overall costs lower and allows us to keep our margins lower, which I think is good for both the clients and the consultants.
Yeah, that's it sounds nice and organic and natural. So what do you have? I'm curious about the experience that you've had around this sort of apocryphal story of, a hotshot McKinsey consultant gets dissatisfied for whatever reason, too much travel or who knows, whatever. And they go out on their own and they have this expectation that they'll be able to command the same kind of rates that they did while they were being built out by McKinsey or one of the others. And they find that it's hard to, first of all, get a flow of leads coming in, and that they perhaps don't have as much leverage at the sales table because they don't have this big trusted brand behind them. They're kind of a soloist. Is that am I just making that up, or is that a typical experience for one of your members?
Yeah, well, I'll start by asking you, Jonathan. Let's say that I had a copy. Let's say I had a painting that looked identical pixel by pixel to the Mona Lisa, right? Let's say I created it atom for atom, but it was not by Leonardo da Vinci. I created it, and it's perfectly aged. A scientist couldn't tell the difference, but we both know it's not by Leonardo da Vinci. How much would you pay for that painting?
Yeah, I mean,
right,
very little.
Very little, right? So Now, the discount between working at McKinsey and working as an independent, even if it's the same exact person, there is a discount.
Right.
Because when you're buying McKinsey, you're buying credibility that you can go to your board of directors and say, McKinsey said, that we need to do this. You're buying, access to McKinsey directors and so forth.
Right.
So you're paying for a lot of overhead. And in some cases, hey, that's justified. In some cases, it makes sense. Maybe CEO actually needs that stamp of approval to get the decision and get the board on board. But in other cases, they don't need all that overhead. They just need the person. So there is a bit of a discount. It's not as extreme as my Mona Lisa example. The discount would be more typically, on the neighborhood of what McKinsey bills out, might be something like around 50 or even 60% discount from the fee that McKinsey charges to the client. However, that rate is still more than the consultant was getting paid by McKinsey for that day.
Sure.
So typically, if you go out on your own, your daily rate will typically be more than McKinsey was paying you as salary plus bonus, but it'll be a lot less than McKinsey was charging the client.
Right. I understand.
And that's why a lot of people are doing it, because they actually earn more on a daily basis and the client pays less. So it's kind of a win-win for those types of projects where a client wants, let's say, McKinsey caliber talent, but doesn't need all of the overhead.
Right. Do you notice a trend in the types of clients who are a good fit for an indie like that? My gut instinct is that there are certain companies, probably on the larger side, who wouldn't even consider where money's really not an object, and they wouldn't consider taking the perceived additional risk of hiring someone who doesn't have a deep bench. Is that supported by your experience at all, or is that? I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just curious what the trade-offs are of being like in-house at McKinsey versus out on your own in the management consulting space.
Yeah, well, I think what has happened, at least my observation, is that it was sometime approximately around the year 2000, more or less, when the number of McKinsey alums out in the universe exceeded the number of McKinsey consultants at the firm. Mm-hmm. And when I'm using McKinsey here, it's sort of shorthand speak for McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and Booz, top tier consultants. Mm-hmm. So more and more, there are individuals at large companies who are former partners at McKinsey or former associate partners at McKinsey who are perfectly comfortable running a consulting, assignment. They're now executives and they're perfectly comfortable running assignments. So they don't need that security blanket of having all of the overhead, the McKinsey partner, the director, and all that. Mm-hmm. So I would say there are some clients that are maybe less likely to use independent consultants, usually not because of they feel they need a full team, but often it's more around there may be some compliance issues that they're very concerned about. So you might see some very large banks might be a little bit more reluctant to use independent consultants just because of all the compliance matter issues. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's not so much about size. I mean, we see independent consultants serving Fortune 10 clients, definitely. And so with more and more kind of McKinsey alums, Bain alums, BCG alums out there in industry, they recognize that, look, if you're doing a operational transformation across 37 Caterpillar plants around the world, you probably want to hire a global consulting firm. Right. But if you're doing a due diligence on a target, then an independent consultant is basically going to be able to do exactly the same thing as a engagement manager plus one team at McKinsey or Bain or BCG. Right. They can use expert networks to source experts, do 30 interviews, write it up. In some of those kinds of projects, the big firms don't really have that much of an advantage.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Do you notice any trends around specialization with independent consultants? Do they have a tendency to be less general than they might have been inside the firm? And there's a huge assumption on my part there that they are kind of general inside the firm. I don't know if that's actually true, but I've certainly seen in other spaces that specializing in your skill set or even perhaps niching down into a particular target market or a vertical that you want to serve can have a positive effect on the number of leads you're generating.
Yeah, well, here, Jonathan, I'm going to give a mention for a book by a close friend of mine that I've given out over 200 copies of this book, which is The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients by David A. Fields.
Yep, he's been on the show.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Right. Great. So I love that book. I've given out, lots of copies. David really recommends, and I agree with this, that to really thrive as an independent, you need to define your fishing line, is what David calls it, define what population you serve and what problems you work on. There's a real fear among just about everyone about, making your target circle so small that you feel that you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. But what actually happens is, as you get a more focused target, you're far more likely to win the opportunities that are in your sweet spot. So I think it's actually the case that at McKinsey, over the last couple of decades, the consultants at McKinsey tend to get more and more specialized and have narrower focus. They've been kind of forced to do that. Some independent consultants can survive and do okay as generalists. But the most successful independent consultants that I've seen really pick a focus area and then invest in building their thought leadership and their reputation around that specific area. You need someone to be able to remember 6 months from now, if they meet you at a party, that what it is that you do, that you focus on inventory management for manufacturing companies, or that you focus on, consulting to e-commerce software companies, or that you focus on the membership economy like Robbie Kilman Baxter. You need to have a focus area in order to build any kind of memory.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So it's interesting to hear that you've had the same experience. It's a good segue too. So you talked about building IP and building awareness. What are is it usual suspects? What are folks doing? Writing books, speaking at conferences. But I'm curious if there are other maybe more modern approaches that people are finding successful, or is it really the old standbys?
Well, people take a variety of approaches. So some people do nothing, and I think that's a mistake. Some people do write books. I think Kai-Han Krippendorf has, 4 books last time I checked, and he's really built up a great reputation, as a strategist. Robbie Kilman Baxter, I mentioned, the membership economy. Some folks take that approach. That is a big investment of time and energy. So I'd say other approaches that for sort of ordinary mortals who don't feel up to writing a book. Certainly, start with posting on LinkedIn. Michael Ryan, I recently interviewed for my podcast. He has been posting on LinkedIn every day about inventory management every day.
Yeah.
And you do that for one day, you don't get much effect. 1 week, not much effect. But if you do that for 6 months and you keep going, people start to pay attention and to find you. And he's starting to, source projects by people finding him on LinkedIn who need help on inventory management. So, just doing posts on LinkedIn. Rick Watson posting about e-commerce every day on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn posting is popular. A lot of people have a newsletter, and I think that's a great place to start for someone who doesn't necessarily feel up to writing big, long articles. You can send out a newsletter to people that it doesn't have to be even all original content. It could be some original content, a few thoughts, but then you can say, hey, here are 10 articles that I thought were interesting this past month. Just pick your industry, pick your focus area. Let's say you're interested in pet food and that you want to serve the pet food industry. Great. Here was 10 articles about emerging trends in pet food. By the way, here's the upcoming conferences in the world of pet food. Send that out every month to people in your, pet food network. And even if they don't open it every time, then 6 months from now, if they have a need in pet food or know someone who does, they're going to turn to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I've seen the same thing on Twitter. I can name a few people, like Brian Rumley comes to mind, who just is constantly tweeting about voice computing. So like, Google Home and Alexa and Siri, those sorts of things. And he's just like branded into my brain as the voice computing guy, Yeah. So if anyone came to me and said, hey, we're looking for somebody that, specialized in he's going to pop to top of mind instantaneously.
Yeah, you got to stay top of mind, Jonathan. And unfortunately, most of us are forgetful. So you got to keep reminding people that you exist. And, I'm a little bit of a broken record on this one, but my favorite sort of thought leadership and mechanism or channel is what you're doing, is having a podcast. Because I think it's just a trifecta. With one investment of time, you build a relationship with someone that you'd like to get to know, right? Number one, you build a relationship. Number two, you learn something about your industry. And number three, that person that you interviewed may even publicize the show, so you're getting known by their network. So, I think it's almost a no-brainer that a lot of people should seriously think about having a podcast, because even if no one actually downloads and listens to your show, it gives you a reason to reach out to leaders in your industry, the clients that you'd like to serve, and find out what's going on.
Yep, preaching to the choir. I couldn't agree more. I think podcasting is it's like you said, it's a trifecta. It ticks all of these boxes. Even if nobody listens, it's good, because if nothing else, you're interviewing people in the area that you're trying to help. So you're going to get to know them better. And it's so much easier to, say you use LinkedIn in combination with this. You're posting every day on LinkedIn about a subject. You're connecting with people who are perhaps interested in that, or they're connecting with you. And you go through periodically, and you can just ask someone, DM them and say, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. I noticed on your profile that, you're related to this topic. This is something I'm super passionate about. Would you have half an hour to jump on Skype or Zoom and just have a quick call? I feel like the odds of people saying yes to that, in fact, I know from evidence that the odds of someone saying yes to that are way higher than reaching out to them and saying, hey, could I pick your brain for 30 minutes?
Yeah. I'll give the example of my 14-year-old son, right? He's a big fan of Rick Riordan, the author of the Percy Jackson series. And this September, he started a podcast called The Half-Blood Report about the whole world of Rick Riordan. He's a 14 years old, freshman in high school. And he and his co-host have so far not just published episodes, but they've had a chance to interview 3 of the authors published by Rick Riordan's imprint, right? And, when I was in high school, freshman in high school, I loved reading, but I didn't, have any kind of mechanism to actually interview the authors that I loved reading.
Right.
And it just gives you that platform to, to reach out to people and have a conversation, because you're giving them something. So, listeners, thank you for listening.
Yes. If there are listeners, then fabulous.
Yes.
Bonus points.
We hope there is not 0 listeners, but so yes. Thank you for listening.
Right. Exactly. Great. Well, we're running a little long on time here, so I'm wondering if you could tell people where they could find out more about you and Umbrex. If they're interested in finding out more about that, where should they go? Sure.
So to learn more about Umbrex, you can visit umbrex.com. That's umbrex.com. Right there's a link. Just click on the Unleashed tab, so you can find my show, which is Unleashed: How to Thrive as an Independent Professional. And if you want to connect with me, if you search for Will Bachman on LinkedIn, that's Bachman, I'm sure to pop up in your results. And I'm happy to connect with any listeners of your show, Jonathan.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Will. I'm sure everyone's going to find this super helpful.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, that's it for this time on Ditching Hourly. Hope you join us again next time. Bye. Would you like to learn how to get paid what you're worth? How about selling your expertise and not your labor? We work through all of this together in the pricing seminar. Pre-registration starts soon, and you can sign up to be among the first to know when early bird pricing is announced at thepricingseminar.com. That URL again is thepricingseminar.com. Hope to see you there.